Flat Earth, tides, and the spirit of nature. So, as we've come to understand how the ocean is conscious, we can see it in a different way now. So, to understand its nature, understand, what it is and what it's doing and all these kind of things. And we've seen it for all the Origins of Life series. There seems to be quite a lot that comes from it, like a psychic ability, as emotions, and such things like that. And the moon happens to be a symbol for emotions. It's also a symbol for water and birth and enlightenment, and many more things under that list. Protection, that kind of thing. um, so like seeing this in a different way, like if we compare it to our our Taurus field, you see we've got like a healthy Taurus field, an unhealthy Taurus field. So you've got your expansion, contraction. Um, so in the same sense of like the energy ball we're creating, it's you contract, you compress and pull apart. So it's expansion and contraction at the same time. Um, this one more for layers, all that kind of stuff. Like, because you got like your different aspects of like your health. The more that you develop your Taurus field, the more intuitive accessibility you've got, like your psychic accessibility. You know what I mean? If you are like the top layer in that kind of sense, you've achieved full enlightenment, you'd probably be able to see orbs and nature spirits, all that kind of stuff. Um, and so, in a sense, you compress them all together. It's like one in a way. So, rather than being separate ones and stuff, like, and when you compare that to Realm as well, I suppose, like, especially for like the previous episode as well. But what we're talking about is like the growth of your aura. You know what I mean? For it to expand and such. Um, so again, referring to previous episode, you've got your sphere within a sphere. So and we can see that, and also like I will make those energy balls. You know what I mean? You practice the qigong, using two hands. You'd have like all the energy. You compress it, you pull it back out, and how that's like water. You see, like how you push water in, uh, it'll push it across, won't it? You pull your hand away in water, it'll make it drag back that way, you know. So in the same sense, you're doing that with the energy ball. So as that compresses and expands, in that sense, we've got a different example. We've got the Vestica Pisces. So you've got a small one, and you've got a large one. So in daytime, it's going to be active, isn't it? But then, like in nighttime, it's probably going to become more into the subconscious kind of aspect of things, all internal, So it probably does fluctuate, from small to large on a daily basis. So, like I said, we're thinking about the realm itself as well, not just us in that kind of sense. So, like how the realm functions, um, when it contracts and expands, like what's going to be happening to the luminaries and all these kind of things whilst that's happening. Um, it's a really big one. Your sphere within the larger sphere. So, like I say, it's like comparing the realm to the ocean. So, like how the ocean is like it's a womb in itself, isn't it? And all the biblical stuff about separating the waters from the waters and all these kind of things and stuff like. Um, Somewhat illustrative to explain it all. So you imagine it moving, you know what I mean? If it's like all in this circular, because we were talking about the full torus field rather than just looking at a section of the ocean, because that's like a 2D representation. But if you imagine that same thing in a 3D sense, then that's like, you know, how your energy ball works, how you practice and train for that, all that kind of stuff, like for Qigong. But in the same sense of that energy ball, we're looking at the entire realm. So how the entire realm potentially does do that same thing. And then also how that does connect to like the Origins of Life series, because like we're talking about the waves in the circle and all this kind of stuff. When a wave does make a circle, if everything is like matching things up, like how the wave forms patterns, and if it matches up with what's in the heavens in a sense, for all the information which comes down through the light. Once it gets that matchup, then it can agree with it. It knows it's going to work in this realm. So, like a circular pattern, in that kind of sense, when the wave does roll, um, it's finding the same pattern as the macro. So, in the sense of like, there's the same shape in the macro in a way. But I mean, we see it in the torus field. You know, as bodies are different. We've figured the anatomy and all the ocean waves and stuff like that kind of thing from the Origins of Life series and stuff like. But you know, in the sense of how this represents like the torus field as such. And then we've got the ovum. It's how that's like a sphere within a sphere. Same as the egg. And then when you compare that to like the avocado, because that's like more pear-shaped as an avocado, isn't it? But it's still got its sphere within the hole as well, kind of thing. Like another representation of, you throw something in water, you get your main wave, and then you get a follow-up wave, and then you get loads of little waves inside. They're all contained within the main circle. Um, So it's just a common pattern, you know what I mean, for when things get thrown in water. So how that would represent like the above, you know what I mean, the luminaries and well, you know, the torus field, sorry. Um, so you got it again, your double circle, about to be. So then again, and so this is 2D representation. If you make that 3D around the other sphere, you'd have your torus field going round the circle, around the sphere. So when you zoom in onto the sphere, and you can see it's got like flat land. Well, it's distorted because of lens. We know it's flat because you can go out and measure it. um, but but yeah, all the land at the bottom in that kind of sense, so it does like represent it, like the full macro, and also saying that, you know, with it being a sphere, it's only the part of the torus field which is a sphere. You know what I mean? That contains the consciousness which is within there and stuff. And then you got all this kind of stuff. Um, the moon and feminine energy flow. Our bodies are like 50% to 60% water, making us pretty similar to the ocean. Just like the moon pulls on the tides, it can also influence the fluidity of our bodies and menstrual cycles. It can also affect males. It's shown that blood concentrations of melatonin and testosterone are lower in the days before a full moon for males. And then we've got this one. Thanks to the moon and intricate dance it performs with the sun and the earth, the level of the ocean literally rises and falls in what we call high tide and low tide. When the moon is full or new, the ocean experiences a stronger pull, resulting in more pronounced tides. When the moon is half full, the ocean experiences a weaker pull, resulting in less tidal functions. Now, when we're talking about like gravity and like mass attracting mass, then the moon, which way the moon faces, should be completely irrelevant to how that affects the Earth. Water is like the most malleable substance on the Earth for any orbiting bodies to pull upon. So, especially if you got like a new moon, next to the sun, right? They're both there in the sky, right? Once they then we're setting, right? Then all that gravitational pull would be pulling on all of that ocean. Would all we want to, yeah, if I had a metal plate perfectly flat and no edges to it, um, no built edges, just perfectly flat. And I poured water into it, just enough water to make like a perfectly bead of water all the way across it. And it's like the meniscus holding it on, you know what I mean? If I tipped it just 1 millimeter, 1 degree to the left or right, any direction, right, that water's just going to slide off. You know what I mean, right? So in the same sense, any gravitational change on the Earth would be massively drastic. You know what I mean? So there's a massive contradiction into the explanation of mass attracting mass, but the moon's light is a completely different thing. You know what I mean? How it affects us it affects humans and and animals and all these kind of things and stuff. Um, Marine scientists around the world have identified a wide variety of ocean animals that use internal moon clocks, aligning specific life events with the amount of moonlight present on a given night. So, corals. Mass coral spawnings are some of the most spectacular events to occur beneath the surface of the ocean, in stunning unison, typically a few days after one full moon per year. Nearly every coral on a reef begins to spew plumes of eggs and sperm into the water column, creating what looks like an ethereal storm. Hold on. Using light-sensitive neurons, corals are able to actually sense how much moonlight is hitting the surface of the water. In some locations like the Great Barrier Reef, more than 100 species of coral will spawn in a single night by synchronizing their release of gametes, which sounds like one of the flower sperms. Um, so, yeah. By synchronizing the release of gametes, corals increase the likelihood that fertilization will occur and overwhelm opportunistic predators with sheer numbers. Um, Marine worms. Many species of marine annelid worms coordinate their reproduction cycle according to the phases of the moon with amazing precision. Under a full moon, sex cells mature in the adult worms living in the seabed. Approximately 2 weeks later, under a new moon, and a few hours after sunset, the worms will float to the surface and release eggs and sperm all at the same time in an almost completely dark ocean. Babyfish are able to see better because of moonlight. Whereas like the predators kind of shy away because it's bright and stuff like that kind of thing. Like, so it's just like kind of ideal because of light and stuff like that. It doesn't really give like a phenomenal aspect to it and stuff like. Oh, that's the coral reef releasing all its gametes, and the squid. Select species of squid, including bobtail squid and firefly squid, have symbiotic bioluminescent bacteria living on their undersides, which allow them to mimic the light of a moon at night by controlling the brightness of their glow. These cephalopods are actually able to match the amount of moonlight shining down through the water on any given night. In this way, they essentially erase their own shadow and blend in with the night sky above, protecting against predators, which is quite cool. It's kind of like because by coordinating the brightness of a glow, these cephalopods actually able to match the amount of moonlight shining, because it's like in the same sense of how water creates life. You know what I mean? How it comes up with these shapes and patterns and colours and all these kind of things. We see that reflection, and in the same sense of the abilities, it's showing you there if it's a bit able to reflect the ability of what the surface of the water does, and match it and all these kind of things. It's working in tandem with it and stuff like that, which is like a bonus. But for it to like reflect the ability, it shows it's another way to show you where it came from, where it learned it from. Like the water can do it, and the water holds the memory, and that information has been repeated and then put into the squid. And then we just got like a list. Migration and navigation. The moon is essential for migration and navigation, particularly for birds. Reproduction. Some animals time their reproduction to coincide with a lunar cycle. For example, barrels, petrels breed at the full moon. I think there's quite a lot that do. You kind of mentioned something to do with fishing and stuff like hunting, growth. It says baby fish grow, but that's because they can eat. Communication, white-browed sparrow weavers sing earlier and longer during a full moon, which is these. And again, you can see the ocean wave, the spray, the same way that the orcas have it. It's like another little bonus. So essentially, it seems to be it's light which reacts with Earth, not mass, you know. So like we talk about like the ocean, like missing the sunlight, you know, whereas it's more of like, you know, maybe it's more missing the moon itself and stuff like that kind of thing. It's like the moon being a symbol for birth. So if that's the case, then maybe the light's much more appropriate with the moon than the sun. I mean, there's a lot of animals that really do display the sun, don't they, and stuff like that. But there's a lot for the moon as well, and it's the interaction of them both, basically. There's a bit of both, because you've got your masculine and your feminine. This is the yin energy, hence the name Spirit of Nature to the title, because that's all the yin-based aspects of it and stuff like. So yeah, there's a pull in emotions, isn't there? You know, if you've got a loved one, you know what I mean? There's always a pull, you know what I mean? You can pull away, but you pull back again as well. You know, like a family member, you know what I mean? You don't have to see them every day. Or whatever and stuff like that, but there's generally a pull and a tide will come in and out in that kind of sense and stuff like. The same as your aura will expand and contract on a daily basis. Everything in those kind of senses kind of relate to what the Earth's doing, and if the Earth's doing it like, you know, like in relation to the moon, then that might be the source of life more than I can't say more than the sun, you know what I mean? Because we, you know, sunlight and plants, all these kind of things and stuff like, it's quite obvious the sun is involved and stuff like. It's one thing I wanted to mention, because like I included the sun and tides in the Origins of Life series. In one aspect of like the heat of the sun, like coming down into the water, one, it melts it, so there's a contraction there. You know what I mean? It expands when it freezes. So there's that aspect of things. You know what I mean, and stuff like. And you can imagine how currents would want to circulate to correct themselves and stuff. You know, to balance the water back out and stuff like that as the sun's gone over. So, despite that, when water melts, it contracts. When the sunlight hits down on the water, I see the waves going out, and it's like an expansion. It expands the water out, in a way. So when we've got the moon, that seems to be doing the opposite. It's pulling on the water. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, you got your, it's supposed to lift it, and, you know, that's why you got your tides and all these kind of things and stuff like. So it's more of a spiritual aspect. Like you look at it in that kind of energy. I don't think it's got anything to do with gravity, especially in terms of mass attracting mass. But you know, for why things are down and all these kind of things, I don't think that's part of it as such. Um, it's just that the moon, it seems to be pulling on the ocean, but not, like I say, it's not in a gravitational sense. It's more of a spiritual sense. Like I said, I would relate to family members or friends and stuff like that kind of thing, and you have an emotional pull, you want to talk or whatever and stuff like that kind of thing. Like we're talking about the communication between the ocean and the sun and moon and stuff like that kind of thing, and how that creates life. There's definitely a communication because light is information, and water's memory, it remembers it, and then you look at like the butterfly with the face popping through the hole and stuff like that kind of thing. So that's the information, is consciousness, is spirit in that way and stuff like that. Maybe the ocean's been here a long time and it misses home, you know what I mean? In a sense of like, what's in the other, back into the Taurus field, that aspect of the realm, you know what I mean, rather than being in this part of the realm. So, an alternate view, I don't know, on how the tides work. We see it in more of a spiritual sense because, like, that scientific way of only having that left brain way of looking at it, I think it's very limiting because, like, half of our realm is the other side. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in a bit. Cheers.